Something else I'll mention, sort of building off of one of the things we've been saying recently in Fides et Ratio, is the sense of the harmony of faith and reason. We reinforced here, I think, by the study of logic. So in some ways, a special case of my apologia for the study of philosophy as part of the life of faith and part of priestly formation. But more fundamentally, because this goes to the question of how you use your mind, and how you use your mind and your natural powers of reasoning responsibly, I think it ultimately becomes a question of virtue, epistemic virtue, a way of developing good mental habits which will allow you to form your beliefs responsibly, evaluate critically, and change them responsibly. There is a way that God expects you to use your mind. Logic is the natural part of that, one of the natural parts of that. To fail to do so is to fail, I think, to be properly virtuous in this particular intellectual part of human existence. Tyler, do you have an idea or comment, sure?
Yeah, what do you mean exactly by epistemic virtue?
Ooh, boy, I could go on at length about that. Since I threw out, I'm going to put up on the board since I've said it out loud now. Epistemic virtue, epistemology, the branch of philosophy dealing with theory of knowledge, with the formation of beliefs, the limits and methods of acquiring knowledge. To be virtuous epistemically, the way I'm using it right now in this context, referring really to the responsible use of your intellectual powers, your ability to know the truth. You can think that there certainly are ways of misusing your intellectual powers, of forming beliefs based upon inadequate evidence, of jumping to conclusions about people and making uncharitable assumptions. Each of those represents, in different ways, a kind of intellectual vice, a kind of failure to be fully and properly responsible for the well-functioning of your intellect. It's like the mental equivalent of junk food. You might say, well, I can have a Twinkie now and then, but there are bad habits of diet which then are damaging your health. And to the extent that your health is not solely your concern, but the concern of people who depend upon you, or people for whom your vocation is directed, then it becomes a question of, am I treating my body responsibly? Do I need to exercise? Do I need to control my diet? Do I need to do these things physically, which may be good in themselves, but which also sort of impinge upon my role as a public person, as a person who needs to practice a kind of discipline and hygiene for others as well as for myself. Is that get a little bit at it? There are plenty of epistemic virtues, sort of key among them. Love of truth, a corresponding hatred of error, the discipline of charitable interpretation, of opposing positions and arguments, a kind of reflective self-awareness and self-criticism of one's own arguments, a willingness to examine and criticize one's beliefs and one's grounds for those beliefs without sort of dismissing it as saying my beliefs are fine, it's other people's beliefs that need analysis and picking apart and attack. That's failing, I think, to make the proper use of your natural power of reason. So exactly what that is and how that works, that's something we'll build out over this course and hopefully other classes as well. A virtue ethics class could touch on this, an epistemology class might touch on this. There are a lot of different ways in which one can be epistemically vicious. One of the books I sometimes teach from by a man called Jay Wood gives the example of Mark Stoddard from the novel That Hideous Strength. If anybody's read C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy. Mark Stoddard, the protagonist of that book, is someone who fails to see the sort of evil institution in which he's been sort of drawn into serving because he has certain kinds of intellectual and epistemic vices. So he says to himself at one point in the book, how could I have been so blind? Right? Why couldn't I see that these people were scheming to do this evil thing? Well, it's because vice, blinded by his own vices. So there's plenty of other examples of that. So that's a little bit of a primer there. There's a lot more to say. We can go into depth if we have time, but perhaps as we go along.